All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty wild new idea in online gaming. It comes from a place called BetFi Casino, and they're asking a question that could, completely turn the industry on its head. So let's figure out if this is a bluff or a true winning hand.
So just think about this for a second. Every single casino, right? Every online game you've ever played, it all works on one simple rule. The house always takes a cut. But what if you flipped that completely upside down? What if the platform actually paid you just for playing? That's the wild idea we're digging into today.
Okay, so on one side, you've got the classic model we all know. The house always wins. It's simple, it's profitable, and, well, it's just how it is. But then on the other side, you have BetFi's pitch. The players get a share. Now that sounds amazing, right? But the big question is, how on earth does that actually work? Let's get into the mechanics.
So yeah, their whole model is built around this idea of a new deal for players. In this first part, we're going to break down exactly how they say they're going to share the profits.
So what even is BetFi at its core? Well, it's a gaming ecosystem built on the Cardano blockchain. And what that really means is it's designed to be transparent and, community-driven from the ground up. The real key here isn't just about playing the games. It's about becoming a participant, about actually owning a piece of the house's success.
So their whole system really comes down to these three big ideas, or pillars. First up is community-driven governance. Basically, the community gets a say in where things go. Second, you have the profit sharing, which we've been talking about. And third, something they call sustainable tokenomics, which is just a fancy way of saying the system's economy is built to last. We'll definitely get into that more later.
Okay, but a great idea is one thing. You gotta have money coming in to make it work, right? So how does BetFi actually make the money it plans to share? It's time to follow the money and look at the three big engines that power this whole thing.
So instead of just relying on one thing, they've got this three-part approach. First, you've got the stuff you'd expect, BetFi Poker. Then you've got the BetFi Sportsbook and Casino. But then there's this third engine, and it's something completely different, Bitcoin mining.
Okay, before we get into any of the numbers, we gotta get on the same page about one super important word, rake. It's simple, really. It's just that small commission fee the house takes from a pot or a bet. This tiny slice of the pie is the fuel for everything we're about to talk about.
All right, let's kick things off with that first engine, poker. The number here is super straightforward. It's a flat 5%. 5% rake is taken from every single poker hand. But here's the important part. Where does that 5% actually go?
And this is where that new deal idea really starts to click. Check this out. A full half of that rake, 2.5%, goes straight to the VIP table owners. The rest gets split up between people who stake the BetFi token, basically locking it up to help the network, then some for premium NFT holders, and just a tiny sliver for platform maintenance. The players are getting the absolute lion's share.
Okay, so that's poker. Now let's move on to the second engine, the sportsbook. And it works a little differently. Right away, you'll see the house edge jumps up to 9%. And their reasoning for this is pretty simple. Sports betting is just a lot more volatile, a lot riskier for the house than a controlled game of poker.
And you can really see just how different the strategy is here. A full 50%, half of the profit, goes right back into operations and the team. We're talking marketing, development, that kind of thing. Now, the token stakers still get a really nice cut at 32%, but it's clear this model is all about prioritizing the growth and long-term stability of the platform.
And that brings us to the third engine, Bitcoin mining. This is the one that's really different because it has absolutely nothing to do with placing bets or wagers.
The idea here is actually pretty straightforward. They take some of the money from their token sales and use it to buy Bitcoin miners. Then, all the revenue those miners generate flows directly back to the people holding the tokens. What this does is it creates a third, totally separate income stream. It's a steady trickle of cash that doesn't care if it's a busy Saturday night or a slow Tuesday afternoon on the poker tables.
So, we've covered how the money comes in. Now let's talk about the fuel for this whole engine, the thing at the very center of it all, the BetFi token.
So the really important thing to understand about the BTFi token is that it's designed to be deflationary. All that means is that the total supply is supposed to go down over time, not up. And, basic economics 101. When supply shrinks and demand stays the same or even grows, the value of what's left can potentially go up.
So how do they actually make the supply go down? Well, they do it through what are called burn mechanisms. Basically, they take a chunk of the profits from the casino and the sportsbook and use it to buy back tokens and just poof, permanently remove them from existence. They also do this with treasury funds and when they hit big company milestones.
And when you look at how they handed out the tokens in the first place, you can see a real focus on the community. Yeah, sure, early private investors got their piece of the pie, but the single biggest slice went to the public seed round. And on top of that, a pretty big chunk is locked away for the next 5 years, specifically for airdrops to the community. It's all about rewarding people who stick around for the long haul.
All right, we've looked at the big idea, we've looked at how they make money, and we've talked about the token that ties it all together. So let's take a step back and look at the big picture. What is all of this actually trying to build?
I think this quote from their own documents really sums it all up. Every game played and every bet placed strengthens the entire network. The idea here is that when you play, it's not just a simple transaction. You're actually adding value back into the system that you yourself are a part of.
So really, the end goal is to create this kind of self-reinforcing loop like a flywheel. You get more players, that means more revenue. More revenue leads to more profit sharing and more of those token burns we talked about. And all of that, in theory, benefits the very same community of players and token holders that got the wheel spinning in the first place.
And that brings us right back to where we started. BetFi is making a huge bet here. They're betting that by turning players from just customers into actual owners, they're not just creating a new business model, they're creating the future of online gaming itself. So the big question is, are they right?